Yet another Sunday evening, and that means yet another live recording of the Auburn Experience podcast. We have got episode 76 coming your way, a little bit of Auburn potpourri. We're going to be talking about that NFL draft, the transfer portal, and of course, a little bit before and after, we'll talk to you, the Auburn family. Let's get into it right now. War Eagle Auburn family and a special War Eagle, and welcome to those of you that consider yourselves part of the E2C Network family. Thank you for joining us live or on the replay, wherever you got here, however you got here, whenever you got here. Thanks for hanging out with us. I'm Kyle. That's Austin. We are back together again on a Sunday evening. It's good to see your face, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate that. War Eagle to you and War Eagle to all those watching, listening, however you're taking us in this evening.
That's right. We love getting together with all of you fine people. We've got familiar people checking in. I'm sure we'll have some new faces. And I don't know, do you call them avatars or do you call them like profile pics? For some reason, I got into calling them avatars for a while.
I'd probably go with avatars. Yeah.
Avatar. You know, I've learned, obviously, keeping people's names straight is one thing, but keeping some of their profile pics is also sometimes throws me off, because especially when you get people that just have an Auburn symbol a lot of times as theirs, it's like, oh, you assume it's that one person, but then you forget. Anyway, that doesn't matter. That was a weird tangent that I just went on. Thanks for joining us. We're going to get started with our recording here in about 3 or 4 minutes, something like that. Typical show lineup that we have for you all this evening. Want to chat with you if you've got any initial comments or questions that you might want to bring to the table. This is a good time to do it if you'll do so quickly. But keep in mind, I'll hang around for a little bit once we're done doing the recording portion to hang out and talk a little bit with you. Austin, are you ready for I know it's different for you because you're in the, I guess you call it secondary school world, the non-collegiate school world, and there are different timelines there, but are you ready for summer?
Yes. Yeah, I am. I am ready for summer professionally, like you mentioned, for sure. And then, yeah, we actually, it's funny you bring that up. My wife has been taking a bunch of graduation photo sessions she just offered that. She's very good at taking photos, and she's offered that to some, anybody who needs some grad photos this week. So we've been on campus a good bit. While she's been doing that, I've been walking the boys around. And there's a lot of people graduating and a lot of people getting their pictures taken. So it's always weird this time of year. As someone who lives here, it gets very quiet very quickly. And we'll touch on that a little bit. But and I always enjoy that. But I think Emily and I are also in the weird minority of people that live here that are always like, it's kind of sad to see them go. And we do get excited when they come back.
As someone who, as a student, lived there, but I had to stay, unlike a lot of people, like, because my job was there when I was in school and stuff like that. I loved the hubbub, but I also there were some things about the quiet that also I valued, and I kind of think back. I'll be honest with you, this is another really weird tangent, but it popped in my head. I got into the best shape of my life during a summer, and I wasn't even like a gym rat or anything like that, but like I had this schedule where I went to, I believe it was not accounting, but because I wasn't an accountant, statistics class, and then would like leave, go to the old rec center, like the one that I paid
behind it.
Yeah, exactly. And go swim a bunch of laps and then go to work. And then I would leave work and I'd go run around campus at like midnight, which was not safe to do. And I do not recommend it. But
there's something eerie and cool about it.
It was very cool. So I think back to those days, they were special, even though I hated the quiet. Even though when you run around, especially when you got close to Toomer's Corner and realized the bars were never quiet.
They're never quiet. They just get slightly less busy.
Slightly less busy here. Thomas says, I'm dreading the summer football drought. I'm probably going to buy another guitar to get me through it. There you go. We all find ways to cope. And if that's the best way that you can do it, and apparently he wants him to take up golf, especially, hey, we might talk a little golf today. So those little special thing happened today, folks. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. We're 84 days away from the
Oh.
release of EA College Football.
This is something you and I are going to have to talk about on how we discuss this, because we're going to need to spend plenty of time around this. And
Yes.
now I don't know what your setup is. I certainly do not have any current console that will allow probably the new game to be played on. I still have consoles that are probably older than half the people that listen to our show. But we're going to figure out how we want to cover that, because that's going to be a big deal, and that will be a big summer topic for us.
I have already done some thinking about it, but life's got to give me a little bit of a break here. I got to have some time to think, and I do also have to upgrade my console situation.
It's for the network. That's what I keep telling Emily. It's for the network.
It's for the network. It's for the show. This is why we do it, and it doesn't have to make sense unless it's for the show. But anyway, we have waited long enough. It is time. We are going to start our live recording. For those of you that are regular, know the drill, but for those of you that may be watching for the first time, let me just remind you about what's to happen. We are going to do a live recording of our podcast. It technically comes out officially on audio and all that tomorrow. It's a 30 to 45 minute show. I'm done saying 30-ish, but I'm going to say 30 to 45 with 3 segments that we hope to get as close to 10 minutes as possible. Auburn potpourri to start off with. Then we're going to talk about all of the NFL draft stuff as related to Auburn. And then the transfer portal week. So football heavy this week, but we felt like it was necessary, and it would be the thing that most people are wanting us to discuss. But there's still plenty to talk about in potpourri, which is why we do it the way that we do it. So are you ready, sir?
Yes, sir.
Here we go in 3, 2, 1. David Housel described it best. We are living the whole of the Auburn experience. You can quantify it, you can qualify it through a variety of different methods, times, people, places, things. But at its heart and at its core, it is all about Auburn sports, Auburn culture, and of course, the Auburn family. Since it's about family, you got to get some members of that particular unit together. I am your host, Kyle Loomis, and alongside me, as always, is the man, the myth, the legend, Austin Scott. Welcome back, sir.
What an intro that is, and I certainly appreciate that. War Eagle to you, Kyle. Thanks for having me, as always, and looking forward to unpacking everything we got to unpack.
We have a ton to unpack, and I know we say that every week, but this is particularly one of those rare weeks outside of the traditional football schedule, but also spring schedule that there's plenty to discuss. And I would argue this is the last week of like big stuff that we know that's coming, because we're talking obviously in our main segments, if you're listening to this, right around the time that's happening, it was recorded, about the draft, about the transfer portal stuff that happened this week. We're going to get there. Hold your horses. But we got to get a full Auburn experience here. So let's cover a little Auburn potpourri, shall we? I think we've got plenty to discuss. Let's start off at the top with the thing that just happened today.
Yes.
We don't get to talk about them a lot, but how about your men's golf team, SEC champions for the 5th time in program history? And if you've been following this team throughout the entire year, they've been kind of flirting with staying at number 1 overall. They've dropped a little. They've come back. Here's what's been clear the entire season. They're one of the best teams in golf. And what they just proved today, that at least in a tournament play, we can make that same description, in comparison with like basketball tournaments and things like that. At least as it comes to tournament play, they are the best of the SEC. But congratulations to Coach Kleinard, to the boys. So proud. Got to see the pictures of them going over to Tumors and roll. And that's obviously the rite of passage of anybody that brings home a trophy. It was fun. It was really fun to watch and see that happen today. Yeah,
no doubt. And, on the way there, knocking off Alabama, Arkansas in order to play Vanderbilt again today. That Auburn and Vanderbilt have kind of developed this this is who they're going to play at the end of the SEC tournament each year now, as 2 perennial elite teams, and Auburn gets it done on top of Jackson Couvon being the individual SEC champion earlier this week. So awesome for Coach Kleinard, awesome for this program that has just kept building and building. And hey, I love it. I love seeing, there's something special about tumors being rolled spontaneously and right after thing. But I also really enjoy these because you have to, for some of the smaller sports that also play elsewhere, these organized times of, hey, this is when the team is going to be there and the team is part of it, and they
Right.
have a bunch of fans show up. So I think it was this evening when the team got back into town and was able to go roll tumors together with the Auburn community. And that's really special. So congratulations to them. And we'll see. I think this team has a really good chance of making some noise in the NCAAs. And wouldn't it be awesome to see them back at Tumors Quarter after a national championship?
And let me kind of bookend our years. I know we're not officially at the end of the year, but we're getting there, right? We're close. There's still some athletics to be finished out. But if you remember, Austin, way back at the beginning of the 2023-2024 athletic calendar year, it wasn't even technically part of NCAA competition or anything, but the U.S. amateur women's champion, Megan Scofield, got us started. And in a way, the men's team got us ended. At least, we're hoping for more, right? That's always what we're hoping. We think they're capable of that. But we're celebrating an SEC championship for the 5th time in program history. Hey, if anybody was pulling their weight for the athletics this year, the golf team was definitely it.
That's right.
The golf programs were it. So hats off to them. As we addressed, it is getting towards the end of the year. And that means some very bittersweet times for graduation. And I got to be honest with you, Austin. I know we sound like broken records. We've been doing this show. How long have we been doing this show now, by the way? Like a year and a half?
I think a year and a half, I would think. Okay. Yeah.
Feels longer than that. I mean that in a good way.
I agree.
But I feel like we've covered this a lot, that when we talk about graduation, it brings up good feelings, but also that reminder that you left Auburn. Now, some of us got to stay in Auburn. My co-host.
He's talking about me.
But you leave Auburn as the student, as that experience part of it. So I only speaking for myself, I feel like you share this similar. I love watching the pictures and the graduation celebrations begin to happen and unfurl. But we just as a programming note, we will be off next week. I probably should have said that at the beginning of the show or pre-show, whatever. But we want to go ahead and talk about that now because we won't get a chance to really dive into it as much and as depth as sometimes we do. So graduation's happening, and a little Auburn heart can't take it sometimes. But proud of it. Proud of everybody.
No, absolutely. This is this upcoming week is the week of finals. So best of luck to all of you. First off,
goodness.
Also, I like Kyle said, we have talked about this before, and it does feel more often than just a normal graduation period. Maybe winter and fall graduation too.
Yeah.
But I said pre-show earlier this week, my wife has been taking some graduation photo sessions, and so we have been out on campus and with the masses getting their photos in front of Samford and the Auburn University sign at Tumors. And there are a couple reminders every year with graduation is that it does make me remember when I graduated and how that feeling was, knowing you're leaving Auburn as a student. That went by all too quickly. And then I'm reminded that I'm getting older because now I'm pushing babies around the Samford lawn while people are taking their photos, and 2 babies, and it does not feel that long ago. So it is bittersweet. I think my not knowing what I knew back then, 6 years ago. Yep. 6 years ago. When I graduated, that I would still be here. I would be my one piece of advice would be to come back as much as you can, and to carry that Auburn spirit wherever you go. It certainly doesn't leave you, and we look forward to seeing where this group of graduates goes and makes the more Auburn name successful as each graduating class does.
Not gonna cry.
Don't cry. No homecoming videos. No homecoming.
I was about to say War Eagle Productions is not here, so I'm fine. I'm good. I did think of one thing. Obviously, we tried to do a little bit of discussion pre-show just to pull the curtain back a little bit, but we probably should at least mention if we're not going to be able to do a show, at least that we know of right now. That's our plan, is not to do one next week. I will be on vacation. But SEC softball is coming to Auburn, and
that's not next weekend, is it?
I don't think, is it next week or the weekend before that? If it's the weekend, if we're going to be able to cover it,
we can after that, right?
I don't
May
know.
7th through 11th.
May 7th through the 11th. We may be able to talk about that. So we'll save that. I'll you know what? A little bit of workshopping happening right here. I'll
No, you're
table that.
right.
Is it this week?
No, wait. No. I'm
I
wrong.
think our calendars are mixed up.
It'll be ending. It'll have just ended when we are back again.
There we go. So that we can talk about it then, because I think it's important for us to talk about the significance of being able to host that, and with obviously transition of the program this year. But just something maybe to keep in mind for folks. We were going to talk about football portal stuff, but I get the sense, Austin, that we may be getting some more basketball portal soon. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of big visits coming up early in the week here. And we might not be around next week to talk about it. So some big additions could be coming for Auburn basketball to round out this off season, if you can even say that. It feels like off seasons are not a thing anymore. But this Auburn team could be very, very, very good going into the next season. So despite some other school getting the headlines, don't forget Auburn's putting together quite a very good team and could add to that this weekend. So
yeah, and what I'm continuing to be impressed with is players making really my opinion is very wise decisions for their prospective NBA careers in terms of being patient. And I'm talking about Janai. I'm also talking about Chris Moore decided to come back this year, and not that we're talking about Chris Moore as a big time NBA prospect right now, but this is yet another guy that gets to stick around and be a leader and a contributor to this team. And to
same as
me, Dylan as well. I just can't tell y'all how important it is to have your Chris Moores and your Dylans. And whether you feel like I'm not even giving their credit is due in terms of what they can do on the court, I'm telling you that is important. And I was so excited to see that Chris Moore is being added to that list of returners this year. So Auburn will be very experienced, will be very maturity led. And I think that is going to show itself as we get into next year. But still many more to come. Well, not many more. It'll fill out the roster for Auburn basketball, hopefully. Now, we're going to move into our two major topics. We're going to talk NFL draft stuff. And then, whoa, boy, that big transfer portal week for Auburn football. We weren't going to get away without discussing that in full detail. All that's coming up right now. But first, we got to talk about our friends at Magic Mind. And when I mention Magic Mind, we're talking about the topic of energy, of focus. Where do you get it from? You've got your traditional sources that you've heard about lots of these energy drinks, energy shots, other supplements out there. But the reality is that a lot of those are not necessarily all that great for you. Now we've got the solution for you. Visit our friends at magicmind.com/Auburn for you to have an energy alternative or in addition to what you already use, such as a coffee or something like that to get your day started off with, that's going to give you that energy, but even more so that focus, but in a healthier way. It's very safe for a lot of you people that maybe have some special diets out there that you're needing to keep in mind. If you need a lower sugar diet, if you've got an allergy of some sort, some people have nut allergies, those are things to keep in mind. This is one of those things that you want to check out for a better, overall, more healthier source of energy and focus. Again, visit our friends at magicmind.com/Auburn. You can use our code Auburn, AUBURN, to get 56% off a subscription or 20% off a one-time purchase. Again, visit our friends at magicmind.com/Auburn and use that code AUBURN. Big topic number one tonight. We are talking about the NFL draft. I always want to interchange them for some reason, because we talk about the NBA draft so much, which is rare. It used to be a rare thing that Auburn and the NBA draft. Anyway, this is about the NBA. I did it again. This is about the NFL draft and our presence in it this year. I think, Austin, to be fair, to start off, we should talk about what our agenda is with this. We want to talk about who actually went where in the draft, but we also want to talk about the reality of, I think, sometimes what the NFL draft can tell you about the state of your program. I think that's a fair way to go about this. I don't want us just to be like, oh, they only talk about the good things. And there's a lot of good with this. We got to celebrate the people that have their opportunities. And Auburn is a big part of the reason that they're having these opportunities out there. So to start off with, did this draft go about how you thought it would for Auburn in terms of number of players, where they went selected? What are your just initial thoughts about that?
Yes, I thought that one or two of our guys might have shown up on Friday, a little earlier than they ended up going on Saturday. But I didn't really expect much higher than Friday, fourth roundish, and then we ended up mainly having all of our guys on Saturday. So it's about where I thought this group would be, primarily defensive guys. But I think that, like you said, it's incredible for these guys. No matter what, they are getting to live out a dream. They did hear their name called, and they are going to make an opportunity to be a professional football player. And I guess you can still call them, they're going to be a professional football player. Are they professional now? We'll debate
I know
that.
that's another. Don't open that door. We'll open it in the next segment when we talk about portal.
Pandora's box has already been opened there. Everybody's trying to stuff it back in. But anyway,
hey, listen, we didn't
do anything.
That wasn't us. That wasn't anybody here. That's all NCAA.
Are you saying it didn't have to be this way, Kyle?
It did not have to be this way. Don't start that one. Okay, focus.
But good for these guys. I'm really excited about a lot of where these guys ended up and the specific places for these specific guys. And you have a list, right, Kyle?
I do have a list for us. Yeah, we want to run through these and talk about these a little bit. We won't have time to spend time on detail on every single one of those, but let's first talk about the official draftees. I'm going to give them to you, and then we'll park it for a second and talk about them. Nehemiah Pritchett, 5th round, 136 overall. Jalen Simpson, 5th round, 164th overall. DJ James, 6th round, 192 overall, and very close together with these last two. Justin Rogers in the 7th round, 244, followed by Marcus Harris at 247 in the 7th round. So those are your draftees. I'll be honest with you, this is exactly who I thought would get drafted. I had an inkling of a hope that Gunnar Brenton, with the premium they put on offensive linemen, and rightfully so in the NFL,
for sure,
that he was going to get picked up as well. And he will talk about him in a second, but these are your guys. When I looked at the way they were drafted, to be completely honest with you, the first three, I literally would have interchanged a little bit.
Yeah.
And that was just my perception about it. But I think it goes to show you perception isn't always reality. DJ James was probably the bigger name out of the two cornerbacks, but he ends up going 3rd of all the Auburn players. Nehemiah Pritchett is your first one. Just goes to show you that just because your name may be bigger may not be necessarily what sells you the most to a team. And it's got to be a fit thing, right? Like who is picking when, who's available before you, what you showed out in the combine. Credit goes to Nehemiah Pritchett for being the first one drafted this year. And, I would argue that DJ James was the guy that got talked about most on this team. And part of that's because DJ came over with a cool story, transferring over from Oregon as part of that kind of, people used to blockbuster deal, BOGOs. We get Justin Jones, Robbie Ashford, DJ. Yeah, well, it ended up okay for us, but we're not going there. Should we even talk about that part of it too? Maybe on the back end. Maybe in the back end. Anyway, that was my initial kind of intrigue of these drafts. Anything else about these draftees that you want to point out?
Well, I love that DJ and Nehemiah are together. I think
so cool.
That's awesome. They're going to Seattle together. I think, like you said, I would have expected DJ to go first among the group. And so it is interesting that a guy in the same position goes to the same team around before him. But I love that they're together. I think they can both serve Auburn well. I always think of Nico Thorpe when I think of a Seattle defensive back with Auburn.
And Ben Obumanu. Ben Obumanu went there.
Yes, a receiver. And then Trevon obviously went to Seattle as well. So I love that. I love those teams kind of having a history of picking Auburn guys. Jalen Simpson with the Colts, I think, is going to be a place he can really grab onto quickly. I see him being able to contribute there. And then I really got to be honest with you, and I'm not a huge national NFL guy. I have my own team that I'm good with, but Marcus Harris and the Texans, I think, is a place. I also thought Marcus Harris would go a lot higher than he did.
I did too.
I thought that he had put on enough tape and enough stats to be able to prove that. And I think in-game stuff. I'm no NFL GM. I'm no NFL scout. I just think the stuff you do in-game is probably what matters most to me. And so I thought he should have gone higher, but I think the Texans are a young team with a lot of energy and excitement that I think he can find a way in there in that rotation quickly. I know it's the 7th round. I know it's very late, and those guys don't always get to make the cut, but I'm excited to see where these guys get to go and where their careers take them.
And here's the thing too. Whether we're talking about draft picks, where you are in the draft, whether we're talking about stars and recruiting, it just goes to show you, and I'll give you an example right here. Who was, he lost the Super Bowl, but who was the starting quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers this past year in the Super Bowl?
Mr. Irrelevant.
Mr. Irrelevant, the final pick in whatever draft he was in, Brock Purdy. So it just goes to show you that if you continue to work hard, if you continue to put yourself out there and you find the right fit, great things can happen for you. Now, of course, I'm sure he wanted to win the Super Bowl. Who doesn't? But he got there. Mr. Irrelevant was clearly relevant. So whether you're a Marcus Harris, a Justin Jones who are in the final round, or any of these guys, because let's be honest, it's not, in terms of perception, the best draft overall in terms of numbers for Auburn, but it's still something to celebrate. And so congratulations to all these guys. Like you said, love the Seattle element to this as well. They're clearly pulling the Tampa Bay card of getting multiple Auburn players, but especially DBs as well. They're starting to catch on. There may be something going on there. For the rest of the crew that we have accrued just far, there may be some after that we're not aware of at the time of this recording, but this is the list that we have that have either free agent deals or mini camp invites. You've got Gunnar Brenton, who we just mentioned, going to Buffalo. Cam Stutz going to Baltimore. Avery Jones to Tampa Bay, and then 2 mini camp invites. Messiah Nasili Kite going to, I think it's San Francisco. I had that written down wrong. And then Zion Puckett was going to, help me, Austin. I didn't write it down.
New York
the Jets. Jets. By the way, good luck to you Jets fans. I feel like something bad is just going to happen again. I'm not wishing it. I'm knocking on wood for you, but maybe Zion can make the team and be the one that helps be a lucky charm or something like that. Any of these guys that you want to give a shout out to or talk about for a second about, they didn't get drafted, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to have a great career.
Well, and I always think, I'm never going to be in this position, obviously, to be drafted or have my choice of where I want to go. But I always think toward the end of the draft, I'm like, would you rather just, now that you get drafted and you can say I was drafted, but
right
now that you're closer to the end, right after we always see these guys start saying, okay, I'm going to training camp or I've been invited to the practice squad for this team. You get to have your choice though. And so I always wonder, if you're that late, which would you decide? So I think it's cool that these guys, if they got multiple offers, they got to choose where they wanted to go and what city they want to move to. But I do think, and you mentioned this pre-show, so I'm kind of piggybacking off of you. I think it's cool Mosiah got picked up by San Francisco. That's a really smart organization. It's had a lot of success over the last decade. And he didn't get to play a whole lot this year due to injury. So they obviously see something in him. And I think he'll be able to hopefully take advantage of the opportunity he's been given.
Yeah, I think that's a good one just to keep in mind. Love to see people overcome adversity and get the opportunities and make the most of it. So we're going to be hoping that for him. I'll give a shout to Cam Stutz, one of those offensive linemen that's been around for a while in a very turbulent time for offensive linemen for Auburn, and has been probably one of the best mainstays of consistency. He's gotten shout outs from several coaches and coaching staffs and leaders in very variety of roles there. He's had a lot of offensive. He's probably had, thinking back now, was he here when Malzahn was here?
I don't know, man.
I think so.
I feel like Cam Stutz has been here forever.
So he's probably had a minimum of 4 offensive line coaches.
At least.
And then maybe 3 head coaches. So a guy that's transitioned over through turmoil and now is getting his opportunity to go out there and show he's compete. So I just want to give him a little bit of a shout out. As final thoughts on this, we could talk about the bow angle of this. Maybe we talk about that save that for another day, because I think that's maybe we could hash it out for a second.
He's wearing the good colors again. That's all we need to say.
That's all we need to know. Back in the orange and blue. I would prefer him in the Chicago Bears orange and blue because that's closer to Auburn shade. But hey, we'll take what we can get at this point. Yeah. If I'm just being picky. the perception around Auburn, and you saw several people talk about this in the media, about if this speaks a lot to the state of Auburn's program. And I hate, it's a true take. I hate that we have to say that too, because we're almost taking a little bit away from the guys that are trying to celebrate this.
Right.
But it is a reality, right? Let's not ignore that nobody's drafted below the 5th round for Auburn this year, or the 3rd day of the draft. It does speak to what's happening in terms of quantity, in terms of where they're going. It's hard to ignore.
Yeah, no, it is. And I mean, when you look at it, that is not something Auburn should be used to. It's not really something that the caliber of Auburn, the caliber of guys Auburn can recruit and develop should be the case. You should have guys, if you're at a place like Auburn, you should have guys that are at least going on Friday in those 2nd to 4th rounds. I think that has nothing to do with how hard these guys have worked on the roster now, on the roster in the past, or the guys that have just been drafted. But it has been a very turbulent time in the last 3, 4, 5 seasons that has caused a lot of dysfunction on the roster and guys moving around and guys all. I think you can look at the fact that the places that have the most guys drafted have the most consistency in terms of coaching staff and a parallel of their success being just consistent, not necessarily being elite, but being consistent. Auburn has not had that in the last, 6 to 8 years. And so I think that's hopefully something the Hugh Freeze era is going to change. I think it will. I think that we're already seeing that, identity and culture being set up in recruiting and being on the field. I think that's another part of this, though, is you have to look at this and see, and like you said, nothing taken away from the guys that were drafted. They contributed to Auburn, and they're going to get their chance to go to the pros. But they didn't have anybody drafted until the 5th round, and they had Alabama on the ropes. They played Georgia hard. So I think you have to look at that and think that Auburn's on the right trajectory here. Now, yes, is that a moral victory? Sure is. But look where Auburn's been. You have to feel good about how year 1 went when you look at the kind of guys that the pros evaluate. If that's how we're going to evaluate a program, then I feel pretty good knowing that's our baseline.
Yep, exactly. It's a good way to kind of wrap up all those thoughts. But the main thing that we want to take away from this segment is congratulations to our Auburn men who are now getting their chance, whether you were drafted, free agent deal, or you're getting a shot at the minicamp. We are extremely proud of you and are excited that your stories continue on, and that maybe we'll be talking about you in the Super Bowl down the line. Big topic number 2 tonight. Obviously, the draft is the biggest, most recent thing. And that's why we spent some time talking about tonight. But I think, and I would argue to say, the more exciting thing beginning the week was what may be the beginning of an NFL draft story just a little bit early at Auburn. In Hugh Freeze's 2nd offseason as the head coach of Auburn football, he is tasked with not just trying to stabilize things, but now laying his I think we're beyond the laying the foundation part, moving forward, progressing. And with that, in the transfer portal era, is taking advantage of that aforementioned portal. And he's done that in the fall's winter portion, whatever you call that already.
Sure.
We saw him do that a lot when he first got here, and boy, did he need to. So that was evident clearly with where we're at. But this week, I think, was one of the more exciting weeks. And really, if my math's correct, 24 hours at one point for like 3 of these guys that came in all at the same point. Let me just ask you this. What was the one area? There were multiple areas we needed help with that they point out. But so what's the one area, Austin, that Hugh Freeze said has to be addressed immediately?
Defensive line.
Defensive line. And we're talking interior. We're talking edge. We're talking true defensive end. He said, got to have some more bodies there. When Coach Hugh Freeze says something, you need to take it to the bank, because he went out and got all 3 of the guys that we're initially going to talk about within basically 24 hours of each other. Now, I don't know if that just worked out that way or if it was purposely timed that way. There are some brilliant marketing people out there that try to time these things out so they get the most impact, but it's hard to argue with the buzz that Auburn got within that 24-hour scope. Your guys that you have to talk about, let's start here. Philip Bleedy from Indiana, defensive lineman, interior most. I think I've seen some differing things there. Isaiah Rakes, interior from Texas A&M technically, but also USC. And then Kieran Crawford from Arkansas State edge. I've got thoughts about all of these, but I want to give you the floor first, Austin. Talk about whatever you want to with these guys, however many you want to.
Yeah, the one that intrigues me and excites me most is Isaiah Rakes. I think that was someone Auburn really wanted in the winter portal. Came down to them in USC, did not work out. And there's that weird rule about once you enter the portal, there's a certain deadline you got to make by the SEC institution to transfer to another SEC school. And now Isaiah Rakes technically enrolled at USC for the spring semester. For whatever reason, he did not want to stay in Southern California and decided, I'm getting back in. So it was legal.
Can we just point that out too, that Hollywood isn't all it's made out to be? Even for him, he's like, hey, you know what? Plains, this night, I'm out.
The Plains or Hollywood? The Plains.
Come on.
Cheaper cost of living. And so I think that one excites me more because it basically is an SEC transfer. That's a guy who was highly recruited, highly ranked in the weird Jimbo Fisher era of Texas A&M, and ultimately this is now going to be on Auburn. I think that's an impact guy for Auburn. I think that's a guy who can come in and make some noise, not just depth right away, and knows what it takes to play in these big time games. So that one is very exciting to me.
Now, here's the story within this for me when you talk about Isaiah Rakes. Yes, Auburn won a recruiting battle. Yes, Auburn won a recruiting battle against an SEC. I won't call them a power, but a major player. I don't think Texas A&M necessarily has done enough consistently to call themselves a power yet. But what we can't argue with is that Texas oil money. And in an era, I should say, where we are talking about money going to players in NIL, there is no other program in the SEC that is just as obvious that they are swimming in oil money. Auburn went toe-to-toe with this team, and I believe I've got I've got some things mixed up now that I'm talking about.
I think you do.
I got ahead of myself because I'm so excited to talk about the one.
It's okay. Go ahead. Just go ahead. We're already there.
Let me go back. Let's start here. That's how excited I am to talk about that one that's coming up. Isaiah Rakes, I think, is one of those that a lot of people wanted, but I think sometimes we forget about some of these other ones that don't get as much attention in a group like this. I'm going to give you Kieran Crawford because what it points out to me is a guy that's ready to take the next step of his evolution as a college football player. Can I give you a comparison? Who do you think I'm going to compare him with currently on Auburn's football team?
Currently on Auburn's football team.
Don't think about it too hard because it's kind of obvious. I think it is. Same position.
Are you talking about Jalen McLeod?
I am talking about Jalen McLeod. Both edge rushers.
Yeah.
Both took a step up from,
Conference USA.
Conference US. Is it the same conference, both of them?
I don't know. I took a gamble there and I just decided to go with it. It's either Conference USA or Sun Belt.
Hey, listen, if it ain't the same,
they might be in both
at this point,
Yeah, look, can you really blame me? I mean, let's be honest. The amount of craziness that it's turned around in the realignment world.
Yes. So that to me is what sticks out from this week. And when you talk about like this group right here is comparisons. I talked about a comparison with Crawford to Jalen McLeod. I think if I look at other comparisons, Rakes makes me feel like Justin Jones that we currently have here. And then who is that? Philip Bleedy. Oh, this is the one I love. Elijah McAllister. If I have my story right with this guy, I think he has like either a kid or two kids. He's married. He seems like a guy that's had some life happen to him.
Right.
Probably in theory, some maturity has arisen. And Elijah wasn't married or had kids that I knew of, but like When
Have been around.
Elijah walked in, you knew that this is a guy that had a experience in life on his shoulders, probably in a lot of good ways too. That's kind of the sense I got here. So those were all transfer portal guys for Auburn that I just talked about in comparison. And that's kind of how I see this group. Is it a little bit forward of me to say that? Maybe so. But that's kind of the way I went with it this week when we were talking about it with everybody. Let's go to what I was jumping the gun on, because clearly I was ready to talk about.
What was the second group you brought up that we needed help in, Kyle?
The second group, of course, you wouldn't know it the way people talked about a freshman group here. Wide receivers.
That's right.
Wide receivers, baby. A lot of people thought that we were going to go a certain route with this one, and they were right. We went up to Penn State. Apparently, it's not so happy up there, and nabbed out Keandre Lambert-Smith. Number 2 in the portal, I think, by most people. Is that correct, Austin?
I saw number 1 by wide receiver metrics. Okay. Is what I saw.
It's different ones out there, so sometimes you get them mixed up. Who knows who's actually right? But here's what we know: a lot of people wanted him, and as I tried to make that a relation with somebody else, you go. Texas oil money, swimming in Texas oil money, and we won. How good does that feel, Austin?
Oh, really good. It feels as good as Sammy Coates throwing them down to the ground. So
that was so good.
Well done by Auburn football's account on bringing that back at the most perfect time. I mean, it feels really good anytime to beat out in recruiting an SEC opponent, because you know you're going to play them. That's the worst part and the best part about recruiting in the SEC is if a lot of the guys you're going after, you don't get them, you're going to play against them.
Right.
And so for the A&M's case, that is going to happen. You know, wait, we play A&M next year, right?
No. Yes. Oh. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
I can't keep up anymore.
Hey, we're going to be talking about that soon, because it was amongst all the different things that have been happening this spring, but they announced the 2026 schedules, which is basically the same flip-flop, but we're going to talk about it on a week where we
25,
need something to talk about.
Right?
25
or 26. I don't know.
25. It's
driving
all
us crazy.
Too many things to talk about. Anyway, back.
No doubt, though, we have the A+ receiver, widely regarded as a very talented kid, and a guy who's played big time college football. And so I think it's going to be great for this young class to kind of learn from him. He even mentioned Cam Coleman as how much he's heard about him, and is looking forward to the chance to be able to teach him and learn from him, and then work together to hopefully create a very talented and highly touted receiver room for Auburn. So huge get for Hugh Freeze, huge get for Auburn, and it'll be exciting. I don't know how they're going to fit that name on the back of a jersey, but I'm looking forward to seeing it.
There's been some pretty long ones out there, but how about this? The equipment crews got their work cut out for them this one.
13. I got 13 characters.
13 characters to fit in on there. They'll find a way to do it, I'm sure. I'm super excited about this guy in the sense that there's a lot of hype around the wide receiver room because of Cam Coleman, because of Perry Thompson, Bryce Kane, Malcolm Simmons, even guys that we've seen perform in spring, like a Robert Lewis, Sam Jackson. And, you know, we've got some holdovers, not many of them, like Caleb Burton, that I think a lot of people are excited to see if he's going to continue to evolve as a wide receiver. But what you needed was somebody that you can look at, not just on paper, but that at Power 5 competition has proven he can be a major contributor, if not focus for your offensive passing game. And so that's what we're expecting. I wave the caution flag so many times on folks, just to wait. Let's see what these people do. I think this is one time, not maybe there's other times, but currently the time that I'm going to say, go ahead and have your fun with this one, because there's no reason it shouldn't work, right?
Yeah, one would think. You
never know. We also saw Jeremy Johnson literally look amazing when Nick Marshall had to sit out, and other times, and looked amazing, and then it just stopped.
Yes.
So anything is possible. But humongous week for the portal for Auburn football. Super excited. I have a feeling we ain't done yet.
It does close on Thursday.
Is it Tuesday?
So that doesn't mean there's not decisions left to be made. It just means, you know, the who's in is who's in after that deadline. So
exactly.
Does the portal ever really close though, Kyle?
It never does. And even if it's closed, you know that money is working.
That's right.
But What we do know is that Yellowwood is much better than that Texas oil.
Mm.
That's going to do it for this episode of the Auburn Experience podcast, episode 76. Talked about a variety of things. Thank y'all for joining us and being part of the show with us. If you want to keep up with me on X, you've got options to keep up with me there. Kyle Loomis 24. Where can they find you, sir?
Yeah, at Austin G. Scott on X and Instagram. You know what draft pick did make a Super Bowl for previously of Auburn, Kyle?
Who is that?
Prince Tega number 76 for the Kansas City Chiefs.
He worked it in, folks. He found a way to do it with one of the topics, and that is how you end a podcast. Thank you all for joining us. Until we talk to you again. War Eagle.
War Eagle.
All right, folks, that is the show. Thanks for hanging out with us. I am going to stick around for just a few minutes with you all to talk. Yeah, Austin, final thoughts, comments. You can take anything that was discussed during there, or if there's anything that you want to just point out before you leave.
I'm just looking through here.
I think there were a couple things I wanted to touch on with them.
Sure. Yeah, WT Denver's coming back. I don't think I know everybody announces whether they're coming back or not now, but I think he just didn't feel the need to. But I mean, he is coming back next year.
Oh yeah. That's pretty set in stone as far as I know.
Bruce selling hopes and dreams. Brian. Brian, your Vikings took a little too many Bammers for my liking.
I know they're turning into the Packers, man. That's
unbelievable.
The Packers have hurt me for years, and I'm not even that big of a Packers fan.
So much in here.
And somebody kept asking me the other day on TikTok streams I've been doing. They were like, "Kyle, you got to have a NFL team." And I'm like, "Do I though? I mean, like, I got all I need in Auburn."
It's take it from somebody in the pits right now. It's not worth it.
What are you again?
You remember this? We technically had the first pick again this year, and we gave it away.
You gave it away.
The Panthers were the Panthers.
Oh, that's right, because we talked about how much you're giving Bryce Young a pass.
When did I say I'm giving him a pass?
You're giving a Bammer a pass. Say what it is.
Brian, they took two. They had the kicker. They got the kicker.
Wait, somebody drafted. So wait a minute. Hold on.
Yes, yes.
Minnesota has now created two kicking sins, getting rid of one of the Carlsons, right? Because they got rid of the Carlsons.
Yeah.
And they drafted a Bama kicker. How much worse can you do as a kicking decision-making process than getting rid of a Carlson and drafting a Bama kicker? Come on.
That is where I wanted Bo to go. That was like my first choice, though, and it didn't work out for him. I thought he'd be set up pretty well there. I think he's set up in Denver too, but I like Minnesota staff, and obviously they've got good weapons already. But
clearly they like Bama boys better, so they couldn't, stomach anybody that's had a history with Auburn.
But now Bo's in the orange and blue again. Bo is out there where my brother lives, so I've already got a bandwagon connection point there. So I'm excited to take it. You know what I'm going to be really interested in though, Kyle?
Oh boy!
Is on Sunday Night Football when they do the intros and it's like,
I know where you going.
What's he gonna say?
Hasn't he addressed this?
Well, someone asked him on an interview. They were like, they didn't ask that specific point, but they were like, "Who are you gonna claim?" And he was like, "Well, both were really important to me," and which I think is the right thing to say. Both were important to me. I'm sure he got his master's from Oregon. I don't know that for sure, but I would think so. And so he was like, I don't see why you can't claim both, which is a valid point for him and in the transfer world. But you don't have time to say Oregon and Auburn on the Sunday Night Football thing. So
could he say?
I'm going to be very interested in that.
War Ducks.
He says that's pretty cool. I'd be fine with that.
I'll be honest. I think that's the best way. People are going to hate it no matter what. And as I've seen in social media, some of y'all are just disgusting people, by the way, still hating on both for absolutely no reason. If he says War Ducks, that's probably the best. That's probably the best.
That's pretty clever and pretty funny.
It'd be, and look, think how many people these days, when they do the announcing or they do their introductions, they have fun with it.
Yeah. Some of them say they're high school. Yeah, there's plenty of options. So I think if he said War Ducks, I'd be over the moon about that. That'd be hilarious.
Because if you said the opposite way, it would just be go Tigers, because it's go Ducks and go Tigers already for Auburn. So they can't do it. You can't have both represented.
Technically, it'd be go Eagles, which would cause a whole issue.
Oh, no. Don't do that, Bo. Don't do that. War Ducks.
War Ducks.
Hey, Bo. Pick that, man.
War Ducks. That's our suggestion, Bo.
Austin, thanks for hanging out with us, man.
All right, thanks, guys.
We'll hang out with each other.
Hey, did you see my Mount Rushmore tweet? You never even acknowledged it.
Yeah, I meant to apologize to
I was
that
about
for
to
you.
say.
The week's been a little crazy, but you did some good work sharing that out. And
I drugged the boys all over to get those pictures.
You did an amazing thing, and I will reshare that out. Give me a nudge if I haven't done it later this week. Right. But you got some good conversation started.
I want to hear other people's Mount Rushmores. I heard from Clint. He was being a crotchety old man about it.
Oh, but Clint's always a crotchety old man.
I know. He's like, well, you said academic. That means classes. I'm like, don't even start with me. Don't even start with me.
That's classic Clint for you. I knew he would be the one. All right, buddy. Thanks for hanging out.
All right. War Eagle.
War Eagle. All right, folks. Stick around with me for just a few minutes. If you've got any other thoughts, comments, questions that we haven't addressed, now's a good time to get them in. Not a lot. I will have to head off here in just a little bit, so don't hesitate. I'll look back through some of the comments too as best I can. But if you really want me to hit on something, post it here. Reminders for you. We've got a little bit of a logistical crazy month and change coming up. We have I will be off. I will be on vacation, not this week, but starting next weekend. So we will not have a live recorded show or one altogether for the Sunday night. I have at least considered recording a episode that would premiere live for you guys at this time. But we haven't worked out the details in that yet. But expect us not to be here truly live next week. And I'll say this on other live streams too. I'll be not as active during, not this week, but the week of the 4th through the 11th, essentially. So be keeping that in mind for your content purposes. But we will be back together on a scheduled is a keyword, live stream this Wednesday for the Auburn Family Night call-in show. Anything can be discussed there. So join us, invite a friend. This is a good time during the off season to kind of help us grow our little family by inviting some of your family and friends to be part of our little family. Of course, follow us anywhere for content across all social media and podcast apps out there. If you want us somewhere we're not, let us know. We'll think about it. It's how we got on YouTube, because people are like, you need to be on YouTube. And I said, no. And thankfully we did it before the rush got over there with everybody else deciding that YouTube was a viable option for Auburn content. All right, let's see here. Thank you, guys. We had a good crowd today. Lots of faces we're familiar with, a few new ones. I think Trey Donson did a good thing for himself going to Michigan. I think he will do well there. So that's official now, huh? I know somebody brought this up, and I thought they said it was official, but I haven't kept up with that as much. Bo would honor his dad and say Auburn. I think he would, and maybe he rotates it. Some weeks he says he's got to win a starting job first, but maybe he rotates it and says Auburn one week, Oregon the next one. I think War Ducks is a pretty good compromise, and it will make people talk and think about it too. He may have already thought about that. I bet he's clever enough to have thought about it, but that's if I have to toot the horn of the podcast and me and Austin here, I'm going to do it on that. We'd had some good workshopping there. Latrell wanted us to get a running back in the portal. I think the room's pretty full, but never say never, right? Never say never. Can Auburn finish with a top 5 recruiting class in 2025? Of course they can. The question is, will they? They have definitely set themselves up for success in that area. Only time will tell. He also asked, can Auburn start 5-0? Of course they can. What you mean probably is, will they? I think they've got it the best shot that they have had. Yeah, because we didn't start. Did we start 5-0 the last time this happened 2 years ago? I don't think we did. No, I don't think we did. So this is probably the best shot that you have to do that in some time. If he says War Ducks, 95% of the audience would have no idea what he's talking about. But that's why it's a attention grabber. It's like, what? But yeah, Are you going to make a reaction video for the EA Sports College Football full reveal May 16th? Is that the official day? I need to write that down. May 16th. I would say probably. Where am I going to be? Doing math real quick in my head. As I told you guys, May, and hopefully when I get to the back half of June, my life will be settled down a little bit more. And there will be times of quiet in between that. So don't think like it's just a constant craziness, but there's a lot of variability that could be happening to my schedule in that time for vacation, but for other family stuff as well. Let's see. The 16th is a Thursday. I would anticipate I will be able to do a reaction to that. I will say yes, tentatively. The SEC Media Days will be July 18th through the 15th. You mean 15th through the 18th? Did you mean that backwards? So we're like reversing time. Yeah. So that'll be. It's always in the middle of July. That's kind of the next marker we have to get you through to fall, right? It's going to be a little difficult. It always is this time of year. And let's just acknowledge, baseball's not going well. They did get a win today. But that's usually something to hold you over. Softball's kind of been up and down. They're ending an era with their coach currently and have an exciting end to it with hosting the SEC softball tournament. But all that being said, it's always hard after A-Day, after the NFL draft, to get a lot of concrete focus about something in college football and Auburn football. But we'll manage. We'll talk some stuff. Try to be a little creative with those things. Austin and I have got some stuff when we don't have a lot of newsworthy discussion teed up for you guys. I think we're going to have some fun this summer. And we always have fun, but we're going to definitely try to make it worth your while. 3-2 start to 2022. Thank you for that clarification. That I thought it was 3-2, but I wasn't sure. I knew we lost one. But there you go. And really fortunate to beat Missouri. Ugh. I was there for that one. Okay. Lately, I've been there. Didn't golf win the SEC? I don't follow, but I overheard someone. Yes, they did. And we talked about that at the start of the show. You missed it. Where were you? Yeah, we gave a big shout out to Coach Kleiner and his boys for winning the 5th SEC title in program history. I can take maybe one or two more here. I am wondering, what is Hugh Freeze's expectations going to be in year 2 for himself or from us? Because if it's from us, it's going to vary. I think expectations in general should be you would improve upon this year, which is not super hard to do. It is not easy, but 6 wins is not you should be able to get 7, I think, and then some potentially. But I think that is I think you got to do that. I think if you're only able to get 7 wins, if you really want to take that step forward in the people's minds, win your bowl game. Because in the 7-5, you wouldn't go to the playoff situation, as many people as do get in, but 7-5 still won't get you there in most cases. But all that to be said, I think his expectations still should be tempered. But I got faith that we can surprise a few people this year. All right, we're going to head out on that, folks. Thanks for hanging out with us and being part of our little family within the Auburn family. Again, stay tuned. Definitely come back Wednesday if you can at 8 p.m. Eastern time for our Auburn Family Night. I want to definitely remind you all then about the upcoming schedule for the week and stuff like that. But thanks for being here tonight. Until we get the opportunity to talk with you again, my friends, War Eagle.